Sometimes the person lying right next to you can feel like a stranger, until one whispered confession changes everything. The coffee maker gurgled to life as Maya stepped into the kitchen. Her bare feet cold against the tile floor. 6:30 in the morning had become her quiet time, the only moments when the apartment felt truly peaceful. She could hear Ryan moving around upstairs, getting ready for another day at the office, and somehow that familiar sound made her feel more alone than ever. 3 months. That's how long they'd been living together in this cozy 2-bedroom place downtown. Maya remembered how excited she'd been when Ryan suggested they take this step. They'd spent hours picking out furniture, arguing playfully about whether to get the blue couch or the gray one. They'd chosen blue, and now Maya stared at it every evening, wondering when it had started feeling like a piece of furniture instead of their couch. The stairs creaked as Ryan came down, his hair still damp from the shower. He moved through the kitchen like he was following a script. Grab the travel mug from the cabinet, pour the coffee, check his phone, grab his keys. Maya watched this routine play out, the same way it had for weeks now, and felt something twist in her chest. "Morning," he said without looking up from his phone screen. "Good morning," she replied, her voice carrying a brightness that felt forced even to her own ears. Ryan's thumbs moved quickly across the screen, responding to work emails that apparently couldn't wait until he actually got to work. Maya sipped her coffee and tried to remember the last time they'd had a real conversation in the morning. Not just the practical stuff about who was picking up groceries or whether the rent had been paid, but an actual conversation about their lives, their thoughts, their feelings. "I might be late tonight," Ryan said, finally looking up from his phone. "We've got that presentation tomorrow and Jake wants to go over everything one more time." Maya nodded, though something inside her wanted to ask why these late nights had become so common lately. Instead, she said, "No problem. I'll probably just watch a movie or something." Ryan kissed her cheek, a quick distracted peck that felt more like habit than affection, and headed for the door. "Have a good day," he called over his shoulder, and then he was gone, leaving Maya standing in the kitchen with her half-empty coffee mug and a feeling she couldn't quite name. The apartment felt bigger when Ryan wasn't there, but not in a good way. Maya had always been someone who enjoyed her own company, but lately being alone felt different. It felt like practice for something she didn't want to think about. She got ready for work slowly, taking extra time with her hair and makeup, though she wasn't sure why. Her job at the marketing firm downtown was fine. Not her dream job, but it paid the bills and her coworkers were nice enough. What bothered her was how little Ryan seemed to care about her work lately. He used to ask about her projects, laugh at her stories about difficult clients, celebrate with her when she landed a new account. Now their conversations about work were limited to complaints about traffic and discussions about their schedules. The day passed in its usual blur of meetings and emails. Maya found herself checking her phone more often than usual, hoping for a text from Ryan, something to break the pattern they'd fallen into. But the only messages were from her sister asking about weekend plans and a reminder from her dentist about an upcoming cleaning. At lunch, she sat with her colleague Jessica, who was going through her own relationship drama with her boyfriend of 2 years. Jessica talked about communication problems and trust issues, and Maya found herself nodding along, though her situation felt different. She and Ryan weren't fighting. There was no drama, no big conflict to point to. There was just less. Less talking, less laughing, less touching, less of everything that had made their relationship feel special in the beginning. "You're quiet today," Jessica observed, picking at her salad. Maya shrugged. "Just thinking. About Ryan?" The question caught Maya off guard, though she supposed her distraction wasn't exactly subtle. "Is it that obvious?" Jessica smiled knowingly. "Honey, you've been staring at your phone like you're willing it to ring. What's going on?" Maya tried to find the words to explain what was happening, or rather, what wasn't happening. "We're fine," she said finally. "Everything's fine." "That's the problem." Jessica raised an eyebrow. "Fine is the worst word in relationship vocabulary. Fine means you're settling." The word hit Maya harder than she expected. Settling. Was that what she was doing? She thought about Ryan, about all the good things about their relationship that still existed. He was kind, reliable, smart, funny when he wanted to be. He remembered her birthday and didn't leave dishes in the sink and always made sure her car had gas. On paper, everything looked perfect. But paper didn't capture the way he used to look at her when she walked into a room, like she was the most interesting person there. It didn't show how they used to stay up until midnight talking about everything and nothing. It couldn't measure the distance that had somehow grown between them, even when they were sitting on the same couch. That evening, Maya got home first, as had become usual. She changed into comfortable clothes and started dinner, though she wasn't particularly hungry. Cooking had become another routine, something to fill the time until Ryan got home and they could begin their evening routine of polite coexistence. Ryan arrived at 7:30, looking tired and slightly stressed. He dropped his bag by the door and loosened his tie, and Maya felt a flicker of the old affection she used to feel when he came home. But it disappeared quickly when he pulled out his phone again. "Smells good," he said, scrolling through emails. "Just pasta," Maya replied, setting 2 plates on the small dining table they'd been so excited to buy. They ate in relative silence, Ryan's phone face down beside his plate, but still demanding his attention every time it lit up with a notification. Maya found herself studying his face, looking for signs of the man she'd fallen in love with 8 months ago. He was still there, she supposed, just buried under layers of work stress and routine and whatever else was keeping him at arm's length. After dinner, they settled onto the blue couch to watch television, Ryan at one end, Maya at the other, with what felt like miles of space between them. They weren't fighting. They weren't angry. They were just existing in the same space, like roommates who happened to share a bed. Maya pulled a blanket around herself and tried to focus on the show they were watching. Some comedy that was supposed to be funny but just felt loud. She glanced over at Ryan, who was half watching the screen and half reading something on his laptop. The glow from the screen cast shadows across his face, making him look like a stranger. When had this happened? When had they stopped really seeing each other? Maya couldn't pinpoint a specific moment when things had changed. There hadn't been a fight or a betrayal or any dramatic event. The distance had crept in slowly, like water filling a slowly sinking boat, until suddenly they were drowning in politeness and routine. That night, as they got ready for bed, Maya watched Ryan brush his teeth and wondered if he felt it too, this strange emptiness that had settled between them. He caught her eye in the bathroom mirror and smiled, but it was the kind of smile you give to a coworker or a neighbor, pleasant but not particularly meaningful. They climbed into bed from opposite sides, Ryan immediately reaching for his phone to check his messages one more time. Maya lay on her back staring at the ceiling, listening to the familiar sounds of Ryan getting settled beside her. He used to reach for her at night, pull her close, whisper silly things in her ear until she laughed. Now he said goodnight without turning around, his voice already heavy with sleep. Maya stayed awake long after Ryan's breathing had evened out, wondering how 2 people who cared about each other could end up feeling so far apart. The space between them in the bed felt enormous, like an ocean she didn't know how to cross. The garbage can overflowed onto the kitchen floor, banana peels and coffee grounds spilling across the tiles that Maya had mopped just 2 days ago. She stood in the doorway, still in her work clothes, staring at the mess with a frustration that went far deeper than household chores. "Ryan?" she called out, setting her purse down harder than necessary on the counter. He appeared from the living room, laptop in hand, looking distracted. "Yeah?" Maya pointed at the garbage. "We talked about this. You said you'd take it out this morning." Ryan glanced at the mess and shrugged. "Sorry, I forgot. I'll get it now." But he didn't move. He just stood there, still holding his laptop, like the conversation was already over in his mind. Maya felt something hot and uncomfortable rise in her chest. "You always forget," she said, her voice sharper than she intended. Ryan finally set down his laptop and grabbed the garbage bag, pulling it roughly from the can. "I said I'd do it. Why are you making such a big deal about this?" "Because it's not about the garbage. Ryan." The words came out louder than Maya had planned, and she saw Ryan freeze, the bag halfway out of the can. He straightened up slowly, and for the first time in weeks he was really looking at her. "Then what is it about?" Maya opened her mouth to answer, but the words got tangled up somewhere between her heart and her throat. How could she explain that the garbage was just the final straw, that it represented all the small promises he'd forgotten, all the ways he'd stopped showing up for their life together? "It's about you not caring anymore," she said finally. Ryan's face changed, confusion mixing with something that might have been hurt. "Not caring? Maya, I work 10 hours a day so we can afford this place. I pay half the rent, I buy groceries, I fix things when they break. How is that not caring? That's not what I mean. And you know it. Maya's voice was getting louder. Months of held-back frustration finally finding their way out. You do the things you have to do, but you don't do them with me anymore. You do them around me. I don't understand what you want from me. Ryan dropped the garbage bag and ran his hands through his hair, a gesture Maya recognized as his way of dealing with stress. I come home every night. I don't go out with my friends anymore because you said you wanted us to spend more time together. I'm here, Maya. I'm literally here. Being here isn't the same as being present. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with truth that Maya hadn't realized she'd been carrying. When's the last time you asked me about my day and actually listened to the answer? When's the last time we talked about something other than bills and schedules and who's supposed to do what? Ryan was quiet for a moment, and Maya could see him thinking, trying to remember. The fact that he had to think about it proved her point. We talk, he said finally, but his voice lacked conviction. No, we don't. We exchange information. There's a difference. Maya leaned against the counter, suddenly exhausted. I feel like I'm living with a stranger who happens to know where I keep my coffee mugs. The hurt on Ryan's face was clear now, and Maya almost felt bad for putting it there, almost. So what? I'm supposed to come home from work and perform for you? Pretend I'm not tired? Act like I don't have responsibilities? His voice was rising now too, defensiveness creeping in. I'm sorry I'm not entertaining enough for you. Maya, I'm sorry I'm not the same person I was when we first started dating and had nothing else to worry about. I'm not asking you to perform, Maya shot back. I'm asking you to care. About me, about us, about something other than work and your laptop and whatever's happening in your phone. I do care about you. Do you? The question came out smaller than Maya intended, vulnerable in a way that made her want to take it back immediately. Ryan stared at her, and for a moment, she thought he might say something that would fix this, that would bridge the gap that had opened up between them. Instead, he said, This is ridiculous. You're upset about garbage, and now you're questioning whether I care about you. That's not fair, Maya. What's not fair is feeling like I have to compete with your job for 5 minutes of your attention, Maya replied. What's not fair is going to bed next to someone who treats me like a roommate. A roommate? Ryan's voice cracked slightly. That's what you think this is? Maya looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something she hadn't noticed before. He looked tired, yes, but there was something else there. Something that might have been loneliness. But before she could examine that thought, Ryan was moving, grabbing his keys from the counter with sharp, angry movements. Where are you going? Maya asked. To my brother's place, Ryan said without looking at her, since you clearly need some space from your roommate. The front door slammed behind him, leaving Maya alone in the kitchen with the spilled garbage and the echo of words that couldn't be taken back. She sank into one of the dining chairs they'd picked out together and put her head in her hands. The apartment felt different with Ryan gone. Not peaceful like it did in the mornings, but empty in a way that made Maya's chest ache. She cleaned up the garbage, mopped the floor, and tried to convince herself that the argument had been necessary, that some things needed to be said. But as the hours passed and Ryan didn't come home, Maya began to replay the conversation in her mind. She thought about the look on his face when she'd called him a stranger, the way his voice had cracked when she'd compared him to a roommate. Maybe she'd been unfair. Maybe she'd let her frustration build up for so long that when it finally came out all wrong. She tried calling him around 10 o'clock, but the call went straight to voicemail. She typed and deleted several text messages, unable to find the right words to explain what she was feeling or to apologize for the things she'd said in anger. That night, Maya lay in bed alone, staring at the empty space where Ryan should have been. The argument replayed in her mind on an endless loop, and she found herself focusing on the things he'd said too. About working 10 hours a day, about not going out with friends anymore, about being tired and having responsibilities. Had she been unfair? Had she been asking too much of him? Maya turned onto her side, pulling Ryan's pillow against her chest, breathing in the faint smell of his cologne. The truth was probably somewhere in the middle. Yes, Ryan had become distant and distracted, but maybe she hadn't been paying attention to why. The next morning, Maya woke up hoping to find Ryan in the kitchen making coffee, hoping they could talk things through when they were both calmer. But the kitchen was empty, and Ryan's coffee mug sat unused in the cabinet. Maya went through the motions of getting ready for work. but her heart wasn't in it. She kept checking her phone, hoping for a message from Ryan, some sign that he was okay, that they were okay. But her phone stayed silent. At work, Maya found it impossible to concentrate. Every few minutes, she'd reach for her phone, only to find no new messages. Jessica noticed her distraction and asked if everything was all right, but Maya wasn't sure how to answer. Was everything all right? Or had she just ruined the best relationship she'd ever had because she couldn't handle the natural evolution from honeymoon phase to real life? Around lunchtime, Maya's phone finally buzzed with a text from Ryan. "Staying at Jake's tonight, too. Need some time to think." Maya stared at the message for a long time, trying to read between the lines. Was he thinking about their relationship? About whether it was worth fighting for? Or was he thinking about how to end it? That evening, Maya came home to an apartment that felt too big and too quiet. She ordered takeout and ate it alone on the blue couch, surrounded by reminders of the life she and Ryan had built together. The books they'd arranged on the shelves, the photos from their weekend trips, the throw blanket they'd bought because Ryan was always cold in the evenings. As she got ready for bed for the second night alone, Maya realized something that made her stomach drop. In all her frustration about Ryan not being present, she hadn't stopped to consider that maybe she hadn't been fully present either. Maybe she'd been so focused on what was missing that she'd stopped seeing what was still there. But now, with Ryan gone and the apartment echoing with silence, Maya could see clearly what she stood to lose. And the thought terrified her more than she'd expected. 2 days of silence stretched between Maya and Ryan like a canyon neither of them knew how to cross. Maya had woken up both mornings hoping to find a text message, some sign that Ryan was ready to come home and work things out. Instead, she found nothing but her own reflection staring back at her from her phone's black screen. Tuesday evening, Maya sat in her office cubicle long after everyone else had gone home, staring at a marketing proposal she'd read 3 times without absorbing a single word. The building was quiet except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant sound of the cleaning crew making their rounds. She should go home, she knew, but the thought of walking into that empty apartment made her stomach clench. Her phone buzzed, and Maya's heart jumped. But it was just her sister calling, probably wondering why Maya had been so quiet in their family group chat lately. "Hey, Priya," Maya answered, trying to inject some energy into her voice. "You sound terrible," Priya said immediately. "What's wrong?" Maya had always been close to her older sister, but she hadn't told anyone about the fight with Ryan. Saying it out loud would make it real, and Maya wasn't sure she was ready for that. "Nothing's wrong," Maya lied. "Just tired from work." Priya was quiet for a moment, and Maya could practically hear her thinking. "Maya, I've known you for 26 years. Something's definitely wrong. Is it Ryan?" The concern in her sister's voice nearly broke Maya's resolve to keep everything to herself. Before she knew it, the whole story was spilling out. The growing distance between them. The argument about the garbage that wasn't really about garbage. Ryan leaving the 2 days of silence that felt like a lifetime. "Oh, honey," Priya said when Maya finished. "I'm sorry. That sounds really hard. I think I messed up," Maya admitted, her voice small. "I think I said things I shouldn't have said." "Did you mean them when you said them?" Maya considered this. "Some of them, yeah. But maybe I could have said them differently. Maybe I should have tried to talk to him before it got to that point. Relationships aren't mind-reading contests, Maya. If you were feeling disconnected, that's valid. But it sounds like maybe you both stopped really seeing each other." After they hung up, Maya finally drove home, Priya's words echoing in her head. The apartment felt different when she walked in. Not just empty, but somehow smaller, like the walls were closing in on her. She noticed things she hadn't paid attention to in weeks. Ryan's favorite coffee mug sitting clean in the dish drainer, the book he'd been reading still open on his nightstand, his running shoes by the door waiting for him to come home. Maya picked up the book, something about World War II history that she'd teased him about being boring, and flipped through the pages. She'd never asked him what he found interesting about it. Never bothered to understand why he chose to spend his limited free time reading about battles and strategies. She just dismissed it as one of his quirks and moved on. When had she stopped being curious about Ryan's inner world? The question bothered Maya as she made herself dinner for one. She thought about the early days of their relationship, how she used to ask him dozens of questions about everything. His childhood, his dreams, his random thoughts about movies they watched together. When had those conversations stopped? When had she stopped asking, or when had he stopped sharing? Wednesday at work dragged by even slower than Tuesday had. Maya found herself checking Ryan's social media, looking for clues about how he was doing, what he was thinking. His last post was from over a week ago, a photo of his lunch that told her nothing useful. She wondered if he was checking her profiles too, looking for signs of whether she was okay. During her lunch break, Maya walked to the small park near her office building and called Ryan's brother Jake. She'd only met him a few times, but they'd gotten along well, and Maya hoped he might give her some insight into Ryan's state of mind. "Maya." "Hey," Jake said when he answered. "I was wondering when you might call. Is he okay?" Maya asked without preamble. Jake was quiet for a moment. "He's processing. You know, Ryan, he doesn't like to talk about feelings much. But he's been pretty quiet even for him." "Did he tell you what happened?" "A little bit," Jake said carefully. "Look, I don't want to get in the middle of this, but I can tell you that my brother cares about you a lot. Whatever happened, he's not taking it lightly." "I said some things I shouldn't have said," Maya admitted. "I was frustrated, and I let it all come out at once instead of talking to him when I first started feeling disconnected." "Maya, can I be honest with you about something?" "Please." Ryan's been under a lot of pressure at work lately. His boss has been pushing this big project, and I think Ryan's been scared of failing. He gets like this sometimes. He focuses so hard on not messing up that he forgets to focus on anything else. It doesn't excuse him not being present with you, but it might explain it. Maya felt something shift in her chest. Work pressure. Why hadn't Ryan told her about that? But then again, when was the last time she'd asked about more than just whether he'd be late getting home? "I didn't know," Maya said quietly. "He probably didn't want to worry you. Or maybe he thought it would sound like an excuse. My brother's not great at asking for support, even from people who love him." After Maya hung up with Jake, she sat on the park bench for a long time, watching office workers on their lunch breaks, couples walking hand in hand, kids playing on the playground with their parents. Everyone around her seemed to be connecting with someone else, and Maya felt the loneliness of the past few days settle deep in her bones. That evening, Maya came home determined to do something, anything, other than sit around feeling sorry for herself. She decided to clean the apartment, not because it was particularly messy, but because she needed to move, to do something with her hands while her mind worked through everything she'd been feeling. She started with the bedroom, changing the sheets they'd slept in together just 3 nights ago. As she pulled Ryan's pillowcase off, she caught the scent of his shampoo, and it hit her like a physical ache. She missed him. Not just his presence in the apartment, but him. His sleepy morning voice. The way he always made her laugh during TV commercials. How he'd absently play with her hair when they were lying on the couch together. When had she stopped appreciating those small things? When had she started taking for granted all the ways Ryan showed love that weren't dramatic or obvious? Maya moved to the living room, organizing the books on their shelves, dusting the coffee table, fluffing the cushions on the blue couch. As she worked, she remembered the day they'd bought that couch, how they'd spent an hour in the furniture store debating colors and textures. Ryan had wanted the gray one because it was more practical, but he'd ultimately agreed to the blue because Maya loved how it looked in the showroom lighting. He'd compromised, Maya realized. He'd done that a lot, actually. He'd moved in with her even though his apartment had been bigger. He'd agreed to adopt the stray cat that had been hanging around their building, even though he was allergic. He'd sat through countless romantic comedies without complaining because Maya loved them. Maya sank onto the blue couch and looked around at the life they'd built together. Every corner of the apartment told a story of compromise, collaboration, and care. The kitchen table where they'd eaten breakfast together every morning for 3 months. The bookshelf that held both of their collections. Mystery novels mixed with history books. The photo collage on the wall that documented their relationship from their first awkward date to last month's hiking trip. How had she let herself focus so much on what was missing that she'd lost sight of everything that was still there? Maya's phone buzzed with a text message and her heart stopped for a moment, hoping it was Ryan. Instead, it was her friend Jessica. "Haven't seen you at lunch the past few days. Everything okay?" Maya stared at the message for a long time before typing back, "Relationship stuff. Can I ask you something?" "Always." "How do you know when you're being reasonable about relationship problems versus when you're just being needy?" Jessica's response came quickly. "Tough question. I think it comes down to whether you're asking for basic respect and care, or whether you're asking someone to be responsible for your happiness. Why? Maya thought about that as she got ready for bed in the too-quiet apartment. Had she been asking Ryan to be responsible for her happiness? Or had she been asking for basic care and attention? Maybe it was both. Maybe the truth was more complicated than either of them had been willing to admit during their argument. As she lay in bed that night, staring at the empty space beside her, Maya made a decision. She couldn't control whether Ryan came home or whether he was ready to work things out. But she could control how she approached the situation if he did come back. She could be honest about her needs without being accusatory. She could listen to his perspective without getting defensive. She could remember that they were on the same team, even when they disagreed. Maya fell asleep that night with her phone on Ryan's pillow, hoping that tomorrow might bring them both the courage to bridge the distance between them, because she was finally ready to admit something she'd been too proud to acknowledge. She didn't want to be right about their problems. She wanted to be wrong. She wanted to find a way back to each other, even if it meant admitting that she'd lost sight of the Thursday evening arrived with the kind of gray sky that made everything feel heavy and uncertain. Maya sat at her desk, pretending to work on a client presentation while her mind wandered to the empty apartment waiting for her at home. 3 days. It had been 3 days since Ryan left, and the silence between them felt like it was growing thicker with each passing hour. Her phone buzzed, and Maya's heart jumped the way it had been doing every time she received a notification. But it was just her mom, asking if she wanted to come over for dinner this weekend. Maya stared at the message, knowing she should probably say yes, knowing that sitting alone in the apartment wasn't helping anything. But the thought of explaining to her parents why Ryan wouldn't be coming along made her chest feel tight. At 6:30, Maya finally gave up pretending to work and packed up her things. The office was mostly empty, just a few people working late on their own projects. The elevator ride down felt longer than usual, and Maya found herself dreading the moment when she'd walk into the apartment and be greeted by nothing but silence. But as Maya pulled into the parking lot of their building, she saw a familiar car in Ryan's usual spot. Her hands gripped the steering wheel tighter as she tried to process what this meant. Was he back? Was he just picking up more clothes? Maya sat in her car for a full minute, gathering the courage to go upstairs and find out. The apartment door was unlocked, which meant Ryan was definitely inside. Maya turned the handle slowly, as if making noise might somehow make this more awkward than it already was. She found Ryan in the living room, sitting on the blue couch with his laptop closed beside him, staring at the coffee table like it held answers to questions he couldn't figure out how to ask. "Hi," Maya said softly, setting her purse down by the door. Ryan looked up, and Maya was surprised by how tired he looked. Not just physically tired, but emotionally worn down, like he'd been carrying something heavy for days. "Hi," he replied, his voice careful and uncertain. They stood there for a moment, looking at each other across the living room that suddenly felt enormous. Maya wanted to say something, but every word that came to mind seemed either too small or too big for this moment. "I came back to get some things," Ryan said finally, and Maya's heart sank. "But then I sat down and I've been here for an hour and I can't seem to make myself pack anything." Maya moved closer, but not too close, perching on the edge of the armchair across from the couch. "Jake told me about work," she said quietly. "About the pressure you've been under." Ryan's eyebrows raised slightly. "You talked to Jake?" "I was worried about you," Maya admitted. "I wanted to make sure you were okay." Something shifted in Ryan's expression, a tiny crack in the wall he'd built around himself. "I'm not okay," he said. So quietly Maya almost didn't hear him. The honesty in his voice made Maya's throat tight. "I'm not okay either." Ryan leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "I keep thinking about what you said. About me being a stranger. About treating you like a roommate. And the thing is, Maya, you're not wrong." Maya wanted to interrupt, to tell him she'd been unfair, but something in his posture told her he needed to get this out. "I have been distant," Ryan continued. "I have been distracted and checked out in all the things you said. But I don't know how to explain that it wasn't because I stopped caring about you. It was because I was scared I wasn't good enough for you anymore." The words hung between them, vulnerable and raw. Maya felt her own walls starting to crumble. "The project at work," Ryan said. "It's this huge account, and if I mess it up, it could really hurt my career." And I kept thinking, if I can't even handle my job, how can I be a good partner to you? How can I give you the life you deserve? Maya's heart ached for him. For both of them. For all the ways they'd been hurting in silence. Ryan, I never needed you to be perfect. I just needed you to let me in. I know that now, he said, looking up at her with eyes that were bright with unshed tears. But in the moment when everything felt like it was falling apart, it seemed easier to just focus on work and hope everything else would sort itself out. And I made it worse, Maya said, her own voice thick with emotion. Instead of asking you what was wrong, I just kept building up resentment until it all exploded. Ryan shook his head. You were trying to connect with me and I kept shutting you out. You had every right to be frustrated. They sat in silence for a moment, both of them processing the weight of what they'd shared. Maya looked around the apartment at all the evidence of their life together and felt something shift inside her chest. I missed you, she said simply. I missed you too, Ryan replied. God, Maya, I missed you so much. Jake's couch is terrible, and he only has that weird coffee that tastes like dirt, and I kept waking up in the middle of the night forgetting where I was. Despite everything, Maya almost smiled at that. He really does have terrible coffee. The worst, Ryan agreed, and for a moment, it felt like maybe they could find their way back to each other. But then the weight of everything they'd said, everything they'd been through, settled between them again. Maya could see Ryan thinking, processing, trying to figure out what came next. I don't want to go back to how things were, Ryan said finally. Before the fight, I mean. We were just existing next to each other, and that's not fair to either of us. Maya nodded. I don't want that either. But I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to make sure we don't end up in the same place again. Maybe we start by talking, Ryan suggested. Really talking. About work, about feelings, about stupid stuff that doesn't matter. Maybe we stop assuming the other person knows what we're thinking. I'd like that, Maya said. I want to know about your day, about your projects, about what's stressing you out. I want to be someone you can come to when things are hard. And I want to be present for you, Ryan said. Really present. Not just physically here, but emotionally here too. Maya felt a flicker of hope, small but real. So what happens now? Ryan was quiet for a long moment, and Maya could see him weighing something in his mind. I was thinking, he said slowly, maybe we could try again. Not picking up where we left off, but actually starting over. Learning how to be together in a way that works for both of us. Like dating again? Maya asked, sort of, but without the pressure of pretending everything's perfect. Just figuring out how to be honest with each other even when it's uncomfortable. Maya considered this. It sounded scary and hopeful at the same time. Would you want to stay tonight? She asked, then quickly added, I mean, just to sleep. I know we have a lot to work through still. Ryan's relief was visible. I was hoping you'd ask. Jake's couch really is awful. As they got ready for bed, moving around each other with a careful politeness that was different from the cold distance of recent weeks, Maya felt like they were standing at the edge of something new. Not the easy intimacy they'd had in the beginning, but something deeper, more intentional. They brushed their teeth side by side, and Maya caught Ryan's eye in the bathroom mirror. He smiled at her, a real smile this time, and Maya felt her heart skip. Thank you, Ryan said as they climbed into bed from opposite sides, maintaining the space they both seemed to need right now. For what? For calling Jake, for caring enough to make sure I was okay even when you were angry with me. Maya turned onto her side to face him. That's what people do when they love each other. Yeah, Ryan said quietly. It is. They lay in the darkness, not touching but no longer feeling like strangers sharing a bed. Maya could hear Ryan's breathing evening out, and for the first time in days, the apartment felt like home again. Tomorrow they would have to figure out how to rebuild what they'd lost. Tonight it was enough that they were both there, both willing to try. Maya woke up before dawn, the way she always did when her mind was processing something important. The bedroom was still dark, filled with the quiet breathing that told her Ryan was there, really there. Not just a dream her lonely heart had conjured up. She lay still for a moment, afraid that moving might somehow break the fragile peace they'd found the night before. They'd talked until almost midnight, carefully sharing pieces of themselves they'd been holding back. Ryan had told her about the sleepless nights he'd been having, worried about disappointing his boss and losing the respect he'd worked so hard to build. Maya had admitted that she'd been feeling insecure about their relationship for weeks, wondering if the honeymoon phase ending meant they weren't meant to be together. It had been the most honest conversation they'd had in months, maybe ever. But Maya knew that one conversation couldn't fix everything that had been building between them. Trust had to be rebuilt slowly, carefully, like learning to walk again after an injury. Ryan stirred beside her, and Maya turned to look at him in the early morning light filtering through their bedroom curtains. His hair was messy from sleep, and there were pillow creases on his cheek, and Maya felt a rush of affection that reminded her why she'd fallen in love with him in the first place. "Morning," Ryan mumbled, his voice thick with sleep. "Good morning," Maya replied softly. "How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in days," Ryan said, stretching. "Your bed is definitely more comfortable than Jake's couch." They got ready for work with a tentative politeness, both of them seeming to understand that they needed to take things slowly. Over coffee, Ryan asked Maya about her presentation at work, and Maya found herself telling him about her ideas in a way she hadn't done in weeks. He listened, really listened, asking questions and offering suggestions that showed he was paying attention. "I should get going," Ryan said finally, checking his watch. "Big meeting today." "Good luck," Maya said, meaning it. Ryan paused at the door, looking like he wanted to say something else. "Maya, about tonight, would you want to cook dinner together? Actually cook, I mean. Not just heat up leftovers while we both stare at our phones." Maya smiled, the first real smile she'd felt in days. "I'd like that." At work, Maya found herself more focused than she'd been all week. The weight of uncertainty that had been pressing down on her chest was lighter, replaced by something that felt like cautious hope. She and Ryan had a long way to go, but at least they were going in the same direction now. During lunch, Jessica noticed the change immediately. "You look different today," she said, studying Maya's face. "Less like someone who's been living on stress and coffee." "Ryan came home last night," Maya said. And we talked. Really talked. It was hard but good. We both admitted to some things we'd been too scared or too stubborn to say before." Jessica nodded approvingly. "That's the hard part about relationships. The talking. It's easier to just assume the other person should know what you're thinking. I think we both got so caught up in trying to be the perfect couple that we forgot how to be real with each other," Maya reflected. That evening, Maya left work at exactly 5:30, something she hadn't done in weeks. She stopped at the grocery store on the way home, picking up ingredients for the pasta dish they'd made together on their third date. It had been a disaster that night. They'd burned the garlic and oversalted the sauce, but they'd laughed so hard Maya's sides had hurt. Ryan was already home when Maya walked in, sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop closed and a glass of water in front of him. The sight of his work put away, of him just sitting and waiting for her, made Maya's heart skip. "How was the meeting?" Maya asked, setting the grocery bags on the counter. "Actually really good," Ryan said, and Maya could hear the relief in his voice. "Turns out I was overthinking everything. My boss loved the presentation and the client signed on for another year." "Ryan, that's amazing," Maya said, turning to face him fully. "Why didn't you text me?" "I wanted to tell you in person," Ryan said, standing up. "I realized I've been sharing all my stress with you, but none of my good news." "That's not fair." Maya felt something warm spread through her chest. "I want to hear about both. The good days and the bad ones." They cooked together, moving around the small kitchen with a coordination they'd lost somewhere along the way. Ryan chopped vegetables while Maya started the sauce. And they talked about everything and nothing. Work gossip, weekend plans. A funny story Ryan's brother had told him about his neighbor's escaped cat. It was normal conversation, the kind they used to have all the time. But it felt precious now because Maya knew how easily it could disappear if they stopped paying attention. "Remember the last time we made this?" Ryan asked, stirring the pasta. "You mean when we nearly set off the smoke alarm?" Maya laughed. "I thought you were going to throw the whole pan away. I was more worried about impressing you than actually cooking," Ryan admitted. "I wanted everything to be perfect." "It was perfect," Maya said, bumping his shoulder with hers. "Not the food, but the night. We laughed until my stomach hurt." "I miss that," Ryan said quietly. "I miss laughing with you." Maya turned to look at him, seeing something vulnerable in his expression. "We can have that again. We just have to choose it even when life gets stressful." They ate dinner at the table, phones face down and forgotten, talking about everything they'd been too busy or too distracted to share over the past few weeks. Ryan told Maya about a book he'd been reading about ancient Rome, and Maya found herself genuinely interested in his explanation of military strategies, not because the topic fascinated her, but because his enthusiasm was infectious. Maya shared her ideas for a new marketing campaign, and Ryan asked thoughtful questions that helped her think through the logistics. It was the kind of intellectual intimacy Maya had been craving without even realizing it. After dinner, they settled onto the blue couch to watch a movie, but instead of sitting at opposite ends the way they had been doing for weeks, they sat closer together, not touching exactly, but close enough that Maya could feel the warmth radiating from Ryan's body. Halfway through the movie, Maya realized she hadn't been paying attention to the plot at all. She'd been too aware of Ryan beside her, of the way he laughed at the funny parts, of how he absently played with the throw pillow in his lap. She'd missed this. Not just his physical presence, but the simple pleasure of being near someone she cared about. "Maya," Ryan said during a quiet scene, his voice soft and uncertain. "Yeah? I know we said we're taking things slow and I don't want to rush anything, but..." He trailed off, looking nervous. Maya turned to face him more fully. "What is it? Would it be okay if I held your hand?" The question was so simple, so tentative that Maya felt her heart melt a little. "Yeah," she said, reaching for him. "I'd like that." Ryan's fingers intertwined with hers, and Maya was surprised by how much she'd missed this basic connection. His hand was warm and familiar, and holding it felt like coming home. They finished the movie like that, hands linked between them, and Maya felt something shift inside her chest. Not the desperate need to fix everything immediately, but a quiet confidence that they were going to be okay. Not perfect, but okay. When the credits rolled, neither of them moved to turn off the TV. Maya was reluctant to break the peaceful moment they'd created, and she could sense that Ryan felt the same way. "Thank you," Maya said finally. "For what?" "For coming back. For being willing to try again, even after everything we said to each other." Ryan squeezed her hand gently. "Thank you for letting me back in. I know I have to earn your trust again." "We both do," Maya said. "We both have to choose this every day." As they got ready for bed, moving around each other with the careful consideration of people learning to share space again, Maya felt lighter than she had in weeks. They brushed their teeth side by side, and Maya caught Ryan's eye in the mirror. He smiled at her and she smiled back, and it felt like a promise. In bed, they lay facing each other in the darkness, not quite touching but close enough that Maya could hear Ryan's breathing evening out as he fell asleep. She watched his face relax, peaceful in a way she hadn't seen in months, and felt a deep sense of gratitude for this second chance they were giving each other. Maya closed her eyes and let herself imagine the future they might build together. Not the perfect, effortless relationship she'd thought they should have, but something real and intentional and strong enough to weather the inevitable storms. Just before she drifted off to sleep, Maya felt Ryan's hand find hers under the covers, his fingers linking with hers in the darkness. It was a small gesture, but it felt like everything. An apology, a promise, a bridge back to each other. "I belong next to you," Maya whispered into the quiet room, echoing the words she'd been too afraid to say when the distance between them had felt insurmountable. Ryan's hand squeezed hers gently, and Maya knew he'd heard her. More importantly, she knew he felt the same way. They had work to do, conversations to have, habits to change, but they would do it together, one small choice at a time. One honest conversation at a time, one gentle touch at a time. Maya fell asleep holding Ryan's hand, surrounded by the quiet sounds of their shared breathing, and the certainty that love wasn't about never having problems. It was about choosing to solve them together.